Welcome to Operations and Supply Chain University. I'm Jerry Wright. This is Lesson 10 of your Yellow Belt certification course, Fishbone Diagrams. So Fishbone or Ishikawa diagrams or cause and effect diagrams are shown here. You can see that a cause and effect diagram looks a little bit like a fish with its bones showing, right? You can see the why or the problem at the head of the fish towards the center of the screen. And then we have all the different bones there. And keep in mind the inputs or the causes are what give us the problem. Now, in a cause and effect diagram, nowadays, there's typically 6 bones. There's products and things bones or transactional bones. It depends on what type of problem you're addressing for what the categories are called. Now, some people would say, well, why don't we just make a list of possible root causes? Well, Dr. Ishikawa proposed this idea of the diagram to be more cause and effect related. It's a common tool now used to solicit ideas to stimulate cause and effect thinking about a problem. Now, categories for the legs can vary. They could be products or things you can see on the lower left. So measurement, people, method, materials, machinery, and environment, or they could be transactional, which are more, administrative type of things, office processes, people, policy, procedure, place, measurement, and environment. Now you can make the legs whatever you want. The categories can be whatever choice. However, the most common is what you see here. Now we used to call these the 6 M's, and at one time there was only 4 M's. It was machinery, materials, methods, and manpower. That's all there was. But then we've gone to the 6 M's, which is really now it's machinery, materials, methods, Mother Nature, measures, and manpower, but we've replaced Mother Nature with environment, and we've replaced manpower with people. But essentially, these categories are pretty common and fairly universal, and it just helps us get started with our fishbone diagram in an effective manner. Because a lot of times environment is not considered, or maybe even measures are not considered, and we really want to think more broadly to be careful about that. So let's look at an example problem identification fishbone. So this is one that I believe was drawn with Visio. So Visio is an opportunity, and there are other fishbone diagram programs. You don't have to use those. You can draw them manually. You can use PowerPoint or Excel or like this example Visio. This one of my students, he said, had this problem that control testing that he was doing takes more than 8 days to accomplish. Now, because this is a transactional type of problem, he actually did the people, policy, procedure, place, measurement, and environment. And interestingly enough, both of his things, he said, were the Excel test template is challenging and there's excessive documentation in the measurement of control testing. So those were the 2 key items that he wanted to discuss. Now, how do you choose? So there's all these different options out there. How do you choose which ones to focus in on? Sometimes it's just obvious and big, oh yeah, that's it. But if you're not sure, you can do what we call voting. Sometimes it's called multi-voting. Now, what I typically recommend is add up all the possible causes and divide by 3. Each person then gets n over 3 votes. So let's say there's 9 possible causes. 9 divided by 3 means everybody gets 3 votes. I think in this one here, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There were 16, so they probably all got 5 votes, 16 divided by 3. And then each person gets to pick his or her most likely causes. Now that could be, I'm going to put 3 on this one and 2 on that one. I can put all my votes on one, or you can divide them up whichever way you want. The reality is that the cause that has the most votes logically should be the most likely cause. Now, that's not a guarantee, but it's highly probable. And so that's why we do that way to get to a, I'd say, democratic way of choosing what we're going to work on as the most likely cause. Now, here's a solution fishbone diagram. Same process, improved testing tools and documentation. And you can see not quite as many solutions, but they opted for 2 main ones: eliminate redundant fields in testing and utilize drop-down menus. So again, for them, that was the key things that they wanted to implement. Now, how do you decide what to implement On the solution side, well, same thing. You can still do the voting, not a problem, but you want to orient yourself towards the best solution. The most perfect solution is fast, low cost or free, super easy to do, and other elements like that. Prioritize which things are most important and then work for that perfect solution and go right back to voting, right? Sometimes it'll be, well, okay, we know we're going to do that. There's only one choice, but maybe you have six different choices. Six divided by three is two. Everybody gets two choices. And then we look at those top alternatives and then select the solution that's closest to the perfect solution. That's where we want to head. Let's get the easiest one if possible. So you've done that, that's great. Now you need to actually implement the solution to verify cause. So implement it, see how it works. Did it fix the problem? If yes, all right, you're done. If not, go to the next most likely solution. It's always important to verify cause to make sure you've got to the root cause and you're not just addressing a symptom. So here's a fishbone diagram example. This happens to be in the Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt Toolkit. So there's an example of this if you don't want to have to create one from scratch. A little template's been done for you. And in this example, you can see this happens to be a thing. So the problem in this one is people are not putting things back where they belong in the lab. If you notice all the different categories there, it looks like there's a total of roughly 8. So we said 8 divided by 3. It's roughly 3. And then we did the voting, and you can see on the voting, which you see the little numbers after each of the areas, that we don't have a proper storage place for items, and things don't have a home or they're not labeled were the most likely causes. And then down below it says there's no audit process for 7S or workplace organization. That was considered like the secondary cause. So those are the ones they decided to work on. Now, keep in mind, if we had these 3 and we said, okay, which one are we going to do? Although I would say the top 2 are similar, you can narrow it further and say everybody only gets 1 vote. Which one do you want to do? And then see what it is. But I would argue that don't have a proper storage place and they don't have a home is essentially the same type of thing. They need a storage place and a home that's labeled, and then we'll be able to resolve most of the challenges there. All right, that's it for fishbone diagrams. If you'd like to get more into problem solving, my friends Elizabeth Swan and Tracy O'Rourke have written a book called The Problem Solver's Toolkit, and it talks about problem solving. In fact, there's just a brand new second edition that was released this year, and great resources for you to dig into problem solving. Tracy O'Rourke and Elizabeth Swan. Thank you.